My claim is that the average weekly working hours of full-time employed residents in Singapore is 41.6 hours. And I got this from the article, Straits Time article, which is published on November 28, 2024. Minor hypothesis is that the mean weekly working hours of full-time employed residents in Singapore is 41.6 hours, while my alternate hypothesis is that it is different than 41.6 hours. This is as this is a two-tailed test, and due to trends like economic pressure around the world, jobs are getting more and more competitive, which requires workers to put in more hours to prove themselves so as to not get replaced. Another reason could be due to more and more people working from home, so personal time and work time have been blurred, thus decreasing the recorded working hours. Due to many factors such as these, that's why I feel that the average working hours is different from 41.6 hours a week. Why is my sample suitable is because I collected my data from adults over 30 and below 55 that have full-time jobs in Singapore. So I set out Google Forms and collected 31 responses. The mean of all these responses is calculated using the average formula in the Excel sheet. And the sample standard deviation, which measures how spread out my data points are from the average, I calculated it using the Excel sheet formula also. And the test the statistics, which measures how far my sample result is from the claim value, is calculated using this formula, which takes the mean minus the population mean divided by sample deviation divided by square root of the sample size. So the next is the p-value, which calculates the probability of getting my results if the null hypothesis was true. So this is calculated by using this formula, t distance and 2t, which is two-tailed, and 30 is because the sample size minus 1 to adjust for the fact that I'm using a sample data. So the significance level is 0.05, which is 5%, and the margin of error, which is the amount of uncertainty in my sample estimate, is calculated using the confidence formula, and you put in the significance level, the standard deviation, and the sample size. So the next is the confidence interval, which is a range of values that likely contains the true population mean. And to get the lower bound and upper bound of this range, you take sample mean plus minus margin of error. So for this hypothesis, I use a t-test as I collected the sample data, but I do not have the value of standard population. So with a two-tailed p-value of 0.01037, which is less than the significance level 0.05, there is sufficient evidence to reject the null hypothesis of 41.6. This provides strong statistical evidence that the average work hours a week is noticeably different than 41.6 hours. The 95% confidence interval is using I get it using the lower bound and the upper bound, so this is a range. So this tells us that we can be 95% confident that the true average working hours of Singaporeans fall between 42.06 and 44.78 hours. Since the lower bound is above the null hypothesis, it is reasonable to conclude that the Singapore workers may be working longer than expected.